Good morning interweb, welcome back to WLRST, the show where I review and or showcase your creations. First up today we have Muffin, who submits a video called How to Make a Regional Map When You Don't Know Where to Start, which I think is going to be part of a larger series that Matt intends to make on his YouTube channel called Uncreative Creations. The idea of this series being tips and tricks to get around kind of world building creator's block, if you will. How to create a thing when you've absolutely no inspiration. So in this video, Matt uses a game called Dorfromantik, which is available on Steam, to kind of pseudo-generate a map, all the while drawing inspiration from this pseudo-generation process, and then taking that and putting it into some sort of graphic editor like Photoshop, and then making a full-blown map out of that. So two things here. First thing is that I'm fairly outspoken with my dislike of generating things, but I think Matt does a really good job here of continuously stressing that it's only a means to generate ideas. Matt doesn't advocate that you just auto-generate everything and that's your world done, but sometimes generators can really help kickstart a process if you're lacking in ideas or just lacking in inspiration in general. So I think that's a very good thing that he stresses throughout his video. Any sort of generation process is extremely useful, but it's not the be all and end all. Also, massive thanks for Matt for making a video. I gotta say, if anyone wants to submit videos, you have a greater likelihood of getting on the show, purely because this is a visual medium, so videos would be amazing. Fair play, Matt. Keep on making the videos, and I wish every success to you. Go check them out, folks. Like, subscribe, all that sort of thing. Next up we have Rassmussen, who submits an entry from their Botanical Encyclopaedia. So Rassmussen submits some pictures I think they've drawn of their various plants, including seeds, flowers, and so on, a pronunciation guide, what family the plants belong to, a brief description of what they look like, some notes on nutrition and toxicology, the in-universe uses of these fictional plants, and finally a note on location and habitat as to where one might find these plants in Rassmussen's world. So yeah, this is really dope. I don't really have much to add other than I think the artwork is really pretty, and I really like the nerdy levels of detail you get into. There's just something about like real micro scale world building that appeals to me. Like, it's great hearing about galaxies and massive interstellar empires, but there's always something really cool hearing about flowers or plants or, I don't know, fictional bugs or something. There's just something so satisfying about that level of detail. Fair play, Rassmussen, that is dope. Keep making your encyclopedia. Next up we have Pediculorum, who submits 3 features of their conlang Mīlıa. Feature number 1, direct objects get a preposition a. Yep, that's kind of cool. Reminds me a little bit of the O or wo particle in Japanese that marks direct objects. Feature number 2, a mandatory indefinite plural marker. Very cool, a bit like Spanish. I think Spanish does this. You haven't made any reference to this at all, but I hope you've considered scope. Like if you consider the 2 English sentences dogs bark and dogs bark in my garden. So both of those are indefinite plurals. It's not the dogs bark or the dogs bark in my garden, but both statements mean very different things. Dogs bark implies all dogs bark, whereas dogs bark in my garden implies some dogs, like a subset of dogs, are barking or do bark in my garden. So you have a distinction here between all dogs and some dogs. Does that distinction exist in your plural markers, or is it context like in English? Think about those things just to make sure you have some sort of strategy for dealing with that. Feature number 3, 5 degrees of comparison. So you can say warm, a bit warmer than, quite a bit warmer than, a lot warmer than / warmest of all, and finally very warmest of all. So that's all really cool, really dig it. The only criticism I would have had is that the phone aesthetics of this seem to be really heavily inspired and drawn from Romance languages. So it's got a real European vibe to it, but I think you're aware of that and you're okay with that, which is totally fine. So yeah, only comment is consider scope. Fair play. Next up we have Florian Roth, who submits an atlas map of their continent of the Great Whale. And oh my god, does it look great. Someone was clearly watching my atlas mapping series and boy has it paid off. This map looks dope. My only criticism here is that it's really important to include scale bars and height maps. Otherwise it's kind of hard to tell, you know, how big is this place, how high are these mountains, etc. Future WLRST map submitters, please enclose those 2 things. But yeah, Florian, dope. love it. I've said it before, I love when people take something I've made in a video and use it to inform their creations, and then I see it coming back at me. I adore that. So great submission. Thank you, Florian. And finally, we have a submission from @ZoicRed, who submits the Oqwe number system. The language of Oqwe has a base 25 number system. Base 25, not the most useful of bases ever, but you say that there's an in-universe reason for this, so A-OK. Oqwe numerals are similar to Roman numerals insofar as there is no designated glyph for 0, and each power has its own glyph. Numbers 1 to 24 are represented as a series of marks that visually indicate their value. Numbers 1 to 4 are combined with multiples of 5 to achieve this. Featural numeral systems? Gotta love them. Unlike Roman numerals, glyphs can multiply together depending on the order. The presence of a unit in front of a power implies multiplication of the two, and after it implies addition. Any number can be read as a series of multiplications from left to right in groups of 2, except in the case where a power is multiplied by 1 where the unit is left out, with an extra unit at the end if necessary for addition. The resulting numeral is a representation of the equation required to produce it. So I don't know if this is unique, but I don't think I've encountered this before. It's kind of cool in a sort of weird way. It's like they're literally spelling out what our system abstractly represents. Like if we say 11 in our system, we're saying 1 times 10 to the power of 1 plus 1 times 10 to the power of 0. In Oqwe, you just write that out. In base 25, obviously. That's kind of cool. I'd be interested to know if this exists IRL. If not, fair play Zoic. That's pretty dope. Also, I really like the aesthetics of your numerals. They remind me of a kind of minimal Ogham/Chinese character hybrid. I think that's really, really cool. Fair play, Zoic. And that was that. Another WLRST done. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted. If you would like to be in with a chance of being in the next WLRST, check the description for all the relevant links. Massive thanks for watching, massive thanks for submitting, and a massive thanks goes out to all the patrons who helped make Artifactscene a possibility. In particular, Lichen, Johan Spaedtke, Oliver Reed, Spencer Brownlee, Alexander Roper, Andrew P Chehayl, John Hooyer, Ripta Pasay, and World Anvil. Until next time, Edgar out.